Matt, and we're talking sitcom stories here. And I'm here with the producer and one of the writers of the sitcom stories, Gareth Kavanagh and Mark Griffiths.
Hello.
Gents.
Hello, welcome.
Hello. And sitcom stories is a project that's obviously very close to both of your hearts because we're taking it up to Edinburgh this summer. And
yes.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, yes, we're carting up a lot of scripts, writers, producers, actors, and showing off some of the great work we've done in Manchester now for a year, and taking it to the most ruthless, rapacious bear pit of criticism in the world, and hoping that we find an audience. But I'm sure we will, because it's good stuff.
I'm sure indeed. It's had a good reaction in Manchester so far as well, and we're very proud to be taking it up to Edinburgh. And there's 6 short plays in this.
Yes, so literally something for everyone. 6 plays based loosely around the sitcom art, so about some of the writers who made them, some of the actors who were in them, and quite brilliantly, in one of the most bizarre pieces, we have we have actually a character, Margo Ledbetter, facing the end of the world on her own in Surbiton, and it's really not what she wants. It's not quite right.
It's not very Margo, is it? And Mark, you're involved as the writer of 2 of the pieces, I believe.
That's right. I've elbowed my way into doing 2 out of the 6.
Well, when you have a reliable writer, of course, you know, who knows a budget, and knows a number of characters, then of course you've got 2 slots.
And you're behind the Fawlty Towers, or Faulty Logic, which is about the genesis of Fawlty Towers.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about your background in comedy that you've got. That's
my background in comedy. Well, as I like to say, I started young, so I was in school when I sold my first jokes to Radio 4, and I was 18 when I started writing for Mel Smith and Griffiths Jones on BBC One, which was rather a precocious start, because I was obsessed with comedy as a kid, and a friend and I used to record our own sketches and things, so I kind of went through that sort of comedy training quite early, really, when I was a teenager. And when I was a teenager, I was listening to things like, you know, while my contemporaries were listening to the Smiths and the Dead Kennedys, I was listening to The Blood Donor and, you know, Monty Python albums and stuff like that. So I had a very kind of intensive, crammed childhood with all the classics of comedy. And so that, when I wanted to sort of turn my own hand to writing, I sort of had all that behind me. So I was able to get going quite early.
What's it like playing in sort of the sandbox of all these different sitcoms and characters?
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, you know. I mean, so there's 2 of my absolute favourites here. So we've got Tony Hancock, you know, possibly the greatest comedian Britain ever produced, and having to write something for him, as it were, you know, played so brilliantly by Howard is it's a dream come true, absolutely. And with the Fawlty Logic piece, you know, obviously things don't come much better than Fawlty Towers. So just as a tribute to it, you know, to write something about its creation, but to try and do it in the style of a kind of frantic, faulty farce. So I thought that that's the way to do it, to try and combine the subject matter with the style of the piece. It's just, you know, I mean, there's a writer, you know, assignments don't come much sweeter than that, you know. So thank you, Gareth.
Yes. Well, to be fair, one of the things I like about Fawlty Logic is you've walked that fine line between where Basil Fawlty ends and John Cleese begins, because it very much, you know, Basil is a very exaggerated version of John, but it always feels there's a lot of John in that character too. Yeah,
well, I think you have to, because these are very short pieces and you're trying to get laughs, you want to kind of push the envelope a bit and exaggerate things, which I think you quite often have to do in comedy. So it won't be a kind of, these aren't little documentaries we're making here, and I'm trying to blur the boundaries between reality and the sitcoms we see on TV. So yeah, John Cleese creating Basil, kind of becoming Basil in the process. So it's kind of like a kind of Genesis story, like that, the Genesis of Basil.
And obviously sitcoms have been and hopefully will continue to be a huge part of all of our lives. We sit down as families and watch them. We sit down as colleagues and watch them and talk about them over the water cooler moment at work. But why should we care about these particular pieces that everyone's going to see? I suppose it's both of you, really.
Well, I mean, we've quite deliberately gone with 6 quite classic sitcoms this time. So it's very much, it's aimed at myself and it's our love letter. It's our appreciation to these great sitcoms, which filled our 3 channels as children and as adolescents, and really it's us exploring and saying thank you to these people for such great work. They're all BBC sitcoms, which wasn't planned that way. It's a complete accident. It's not to say there isn't great stuff on ITV. I think we could have done amazing things with George and Mildred and things like that. We will do, but people should go and say, if you loved any of those sitcoms, if you've sat there and just laughed until you can't laugh anymore, or really just can always go back to Fawlty Towers and find something to cheer your day up, then this is the play for you.
Absolutely. And there's a question I've been asking everybody who's been on this sofa today, and it's one I'm going to ask you two now. What's your favourite sitcom?
Oh, that's evil, isn't it?
Notice sitcom.
I always say, actually, it's a boring answer, but it's Fawlty Towers, because when it's perfect, which it is for probably 90% of the time, it's unbeatable. I can't imagine anyone else playing those roles. I can't imagine, there's barely a minute goes by in those scripts that isn't a potentially brilliant moment, and yet he still finds a way to explore a disintegrating marriage, to explore the little interconnected ecosystem that these small hotels are, which I'm from myself. So yeah, that one probably Fawlty Towers. That's going to take some beating for me. So you can't have that.
Okay. I will go for Hancock's Half Hour, I think, because with that you get the perfect marriage of writers and performer. Hancock at his best was just an untouchable comic, and Galton and Simpson writing at their best were just, far and away the greatest sitcom writing team I think Britain has produced. So put those together, those later Hancocks are just exquisite, just the perfect combination of talent. So I think it's hard to beat that.
It's very interesting that all the answers we've had to this over the course of talking to people are all completely on the spectrum, but they're all quite similar to each other as well.
Oh, good, everyone hasn't said Fawlty Towers.
That's a relief. No, you're the first one, actually, Gareth.
So what's your favourite sitcom then, Matt?
Oh, my favourite sitcom. I think I'm gonna. It's been one that's been said today already. I think the first series of I'm Alan Partridge, where he's stuck in the travel tavern on his own. His marriage has disintegrated. His career is disintegrating in front of him, and he's stuck in this soulless hotel room, which God knows I've seen so many of in my job travelling up and down the country. But he's actually the one who's there all the time and doesn't realise that everyone's deconstructed him bit by bit. I think Steve Coogan's created a very, very interesting character in Partridge.
Yeah, he's Wile E. Coyote run off the cliff and running in that fresh air, but not yet realising he's dropped. And yeah, it's very clever.
And very good when they brought him back recently in the This Time series, only to knock him down again.
That was really interesting how they did that.
So it's there are classic characters.
Rich sitcoms, and of course we're back with Sitcom Stories 2 in October, which is going to be a horror-themed edition. So that will be making its debut in Manchester and right here in Video Odyssey in Liverpool. So stay tuned.
Absolutely, an important piece of Northern theatre going up to Edinburgh as well. It's an interesting time for Manchester's independent theatre scene at present, and we're really pleased to be taking something up north.
Yeah, we're proud. And but come and see us, or the actors will be living on pot noodles. We aspire to give them a little more.
Other noodle-based snacks are available, of course. That's Sitcom Stories, part of the Edinburgh Free Fringe, this August in Edinburgh, the 11th to the 17th. Do have a look, and also do have a look at the Kickstarter page. There's some very nice perks on there as well, but we'll hope you'll come and join us. In the meantime, thank you, gents, for joining us here on Sofa.
Thanks.
We'll see you again soon. Till then, take care.